Android Dialogues, where we have bite-sized conversations with people from the Android community. I'm Chiu-Ki Chen, and today we're speaking with...
I'm Kate Catlin, and I'm from Flock, which is at findmyflock.com.
Cool. And today I'm with Kate because she, I think this past weekend or previous weekend, was at GoCo Colorado, which is a programming competition. And she wrote very quickly an Android app with some friends and then now realized that she wants some tests. So we're going to figure out how we can add some tests to her app.
Yep, exactly. we wrote this really quickly over a hackathon weekend, and I don't actually know how to test, but we're hoping to add some tests in to make it more stable.
Cool. All right. So maybe you can just step us through what the app does and then tell me what you want to test.
Perfect. Great. So why don't we start by walking through. We'll launch the emulator here. So as a background, the app is a way for employers to connect to new communities to consider more diverse candidates if they are hiring in technology. So we wanted to give them a really easy way to see what schools in Colorado might offer more diversity than what they're currently seeing in their applicant pool. So really quick launch screen.
Try not to move the mouse because
it just distracting?
Looks very distracting. Yeah,
okay.
That's all. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. So very quick launch screen. By the way, we built everything in pure activities, no fragments, because again, we were moving quickly. You click Let's Get Started, and it takes you to the second activity, which is a chat frame. And we actually pulled in another library to help us with that. Okay. So it asks you some questions about what role you're hiring for. You answer them. Are you open to remote work? Let's say yes. How many years of experience are you looking for? 3. How many employees does your current company have? Let's say 100. So again, it's just stepping you through what you're hiring for. And then it actually prompts you as well to consider more diverse candidates. Oh, let's say it's a little bit diverse.
Okay.
Not doing great. What level of experience you're looking for? We'll say junior. I guess that contradicts with 3, but that's okay.
It's okay. We don't have to be consistent in this quick test.
Exactly.
So it asks you a bunch of questions.
Correct.
In a chat interface, not in a form, which is interesting. It looks very different. And then I think you could click on general. Generalist. I thought you'd click on January list. Where did I see the results?
Yeah, and then, so this is activity 3. So once you've answered all the chat's questions, it's very slow right now, but it's loading up this web view, and we're pulling this in from a Heroku backend, and it just says like, okay, since you're willing to hire remote workers, check out these colleges, et cetera, et cetera. So the important part here is that we're saving some of the information that you respond to the chatbot with, but not all of it. Okay. And then there's some interesting, like, sometimes because we're using a library, some of the questions are formatted as an open-ended question that you can type anything to. Some of them are binary, some of them are multiple choice. So there's different types of questions coming in and leaving. There's different ways to interact with it, and then depending on your answers, it shows you different things in the web view. So we also have to pass some information to the third screen.
Great. Okay. So my mind's already like cranking on like what to test. But I think before I kind of ask you more questions about the testing side of things, maybe you can show me the library, how things are structured. Because if you didn't write the code, we may be restricted by how the library is organized. We can close this tab so we have more room. Yay, more room.
Yeah, perfect. So really quickly, here's the launch activity.
You know what, let's close that tab as well. Just like more room.
Okay, there
yay.
we go. So here's the launch activity. That's pretty simple. And then it takes you into the chat activity. And you can see here that it gets a lot more complicated as we're handling different types of questions and presenting different choices and then handling answers differently as well.
Okay.
And then the library that we pulled in is called Slice Messaging Fragment.
So you are using fragments.
Oh yeah, I guess
because you cannot not use a fragment. No choice.
That's true. We tried not to, but yeah, we pulled this fragment in, and this is a library from the internet. So we can't. It's not infinite what we can change here, which I suppose makes unit testing rather difficult as well. But again, I'm a total beginner.
I have tricks. I brought the bag, so I can open the bag of tricks and tell you what we can do to make it more testable. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So so the way this library works, can you just kind of step through the interaction that Like basically,
Yes.
how do you give it a question and how does it tell you what the next thing? Because I think that's the part that we want to test, right? Like the logic to make sure that, I'm imagining basically we have a kind of a chart of flow questions of you answer this way, then I do this, and then if you do it, and then you do it that way. Oh, it's just always the same question.
It's actually always the same question.
It's easier. Okay.
Yeah. So in the future, we'd like to make it more dynamic, because this is just for the weekend. It was always the same questions.
So it's a linear path that's coming down.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we did save the questions as a internal JSON because we're sharing the questions with our iOS app, who was built by someone else. So we wanted to make sure that if it got changed, it changed for both of us simultaneously. So these questions are coming from this JSON, which we're pulling in here, and then getting an array from that.
Great. So now that we have initialized the fragment with those questions, like what happens? Like it says update current question. Like,
yes, and so forgive me. So this has been like 2.5 weeks since we wrote this, so I'm pretty sure I remember what's going on here.
That's fine. We have the truth in front of us, also known as the code.
Yes, exactly. So we're making a list of these questions.
Okay.
And we're pulling them in from the JSON and getting the data that way. And the first thing that the app does is update the current questions. So from the list, it gets the first one and then removes that from the list.
Okay.
And then once we have that, we go back up here and say, okay, we have the current question. What do we do now? And this is where things get more complicated. So as long as there is still a current question, because if there's not, we're just going to say, oh, we're done, so we're going to the next page. Then we figure out what type it is. We do some configuration and some handling on that. And then using this messaging fragment library that we pulled in from the internet, we're adding that as a new message and sending that out. And so then it displays on the app. So I think the first question was something like, what's the title of the position that you're bringing in? And so once you have, let me find where that code is, but once you have a response to that question, then on user sends text message. Okay.
So you listen for that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the library we imported actually handles that. So once the user responds to that message, then first you have to figure out, oh, is this an important question? Were we really going to store that? And in some cases, the answer is yes. Like, are you willing to hire remote workers? But in this case, the answer is no. And so in this case, we're not going to store the question because it was something that we don't need for the final.
So right now, it never stores anything. Right.
There is, yes, some of it is being stored, but right now, no, because for this question, it wasn't important.
The storage part is going to make the testing a little bit more complicated. So.
Okay. Yeah. So well, for some of the other questions, though, it does get stored.
Oh, okay. So we will have to handle that anyway. No, it's just like basically, if you're storing state, like if the test is going to change the state of the app, then next time you run, you may be getting different results, depending on whether you read like the stored result or not. So
Got it.
That's all.
Oh, to clarify,
it sounds like you just store
a database. It's just storing it to take it to like it just changes the
it's just
API
in memory.
Call. Yeah.
Oh, so it's not stored.
Okay, not stored.
In my
just
mind,
kidding.
it's not stored. It's like basically if it's a persisting storage, then it okay. Oh, then it's good. It's simple. All right.
Much easier. Much easier.
All right.
Okay, so we decided for this one we're not going to store, or in this case even memorize like what you said. So then we just switch straight to sending the next question.
Okay.
And so then there's a bunch of like you go back to the list and you figure out like, or is there a follow up to this? Some of them have follow ups and some of them don't. And then there's a last method for like the question is answered. So if there's more questions, then we repeat where we update the current question and then ask it. Otherwise, if there's not more questions to ask, then we advance to the next activity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then advance to stats is literally launching an activity with the but where do all the answers go? Like
so the answers.
You actually collect all of these and they just turn it into a URL.
Correct.
You know what? This is actually very good news for you.
Great.
Because what you want is basically verify that given this JSON file and this set of user response, this URL is generated.
Correct.
So there's nothing Android in there. which is
in passing it along. Yeah.
Because like the part that you want to verify, which is great because when you have something that's Android specific, you need to run it on an emulator and you need to like click buttons and whatnot. And that part usually takes a long time because you literally have to be sending click events and type events. And I think since you did not write that part, it's a library, there's not really a point to test that part, right? Because you're literally just telling the chat fragment, ask them that question. And then it displays it whichever way it wants, and then it types it out and then give you a string back, right?
Right, yeah.
So exactly. I think I would at this moment not test that part and just test the like that flow of ask a question, the answer come back, ask another question, and answer come back, and then the end, and then generate the URL, and then make sure that the URL is as expected.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right.
Can I ask a quick question on that actually? So I was reading a little bit about unit tests, and there's JUnit, and then there's Espresso.
Yes.
And I think Espresso is more the UI testing, is that right?
Yeah.
So is that when you actually click the buttons?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a little bit confusing because JUnit is the unit testing side of things, but Espresso is kind of the UI add-on part. So you cannot run Espresso without JUnit. So JUnit is kind of the basic part, but if you have JUnit but no Espresso, then you can only run things on the pure Java side. So you can only test things that does not involve any Android classes.
Great.
Which is kind of confusing, which is what we're going to do right now because that means that we don't need to run anything on the emulator. You just run it on your host computer, which means it's like millisecond fast. Versus if you're running an emulator, assuming it's launched already, you still have to push the APK over, launch the activity, and then like literally send key events. Like Android engineer will be like ANDROID space. I mean, I make it sound much slower. I mean, it's faster than a human, but it's still slower than JVM, which is, there's no UI event simulation.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So I can also show you if you want how to do the Espresso one. But I think for this weekend, or whichever weekend, we are going to be having this ready. I think verifying the logic is like the most bang for the buck.
Perfect.
Because I think we can have confidence that the library, whoever wrote the library, is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
That sounds fantastic.
Okay, cool. So so it looks like what we will be doing is extracting the logic out of this chat activity into its own class and then test that class. So let's see what maybe we can start writing like a new class already. What will we call this? Chat logic. That's it.
Sure. Yeah.
Does it sound like a good name? I don't like naming things. So
is that a new class you mean inside of this chat activity, or is that
outside,
going to be
like a separate class, but in the same folder as chat activity?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because basically what I want is to test just that one. So you know what? Click on this little crosshair thing.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. Bam, we're there.
Oh, great.
Yay! All right. So and then we can. Usually I do right click new Java class, and then we call it chat logic.
Chat logic, just like that?
Yep.
Cool.
Cool. So now basically the idea is that I want this class to handle the question reading, and then it will handle the part about getting get next question, right? And then once you get the next question, it will send it over to the. So basically, the activity will call get next question out of this class, and then it will come back and then try to feed the answer back into this class. So that it will just keep feeding the next question, and then we can verify what is the next question that got spit out from this logic.
Okay.
And then at the end, when they say done, then it will spit out the URL, and then we can verify that the URL is what we expect.
Okay, so we're going to refactor this activity then
Exactly.
a little bit. Great.
Yeah, which is basically, testing actually is basically all about refactoring.
All right, good to know.
Yeah, you're like, this is not what I signed up for. I thought we would just write some tests. And you're like, but you look very skeptical when you're like, what do you mean by create a new class? Why are we creating a new class? So the idea of creating this new class is to extract out the logic part and try to stay outside of any Android classes, so that then once we've refactored it, then we can test it.
This makes sense. I think we were aware that in order to write good unit tests, we would have to pull some stuff out.
Yeah.
But this is great.
So this is unit testing. If like you want to go down the other path, which is Espresso testing, you don't really need to do that. You can just launch activity and then ask Espresso to like click here, type this, and then verify things. The complicated part is that you didn't write the fragment, so we will need to like do some, detective work to figure out how it's structured, so that we figure out where is the bit that you want to verify.
Okay.
So I think this is also, I just much prefer doing JUnit, like JVM testing, because it's faster.
Yeah, that
Cool.
sounds great.
So let's do some refactoring then.